I was 38 years old, but every time I looked in the mirror, I was proud of myself, because time had been kind to me, and consistent exercise, skincare, and a healthy lifestyle had kept me looking young and attractive. Nathan always tells me how beautiful I am, but since he is rarely home due to work, sometimes I even forget what he said that morning. Nathan left for work early, and the house was quiet. I like these peaceful moments when I can focus on myself. I decided to take a bath. The relaxing effect of the warm water and a little self-care are always good for me. I walked into the bathroom, put on a face mask, and stepped into the shower. The warm water warmed my body. As I stepped out of the shower, I tried to clear my thoughts. I put on red lingerie. Red has always been my favorite color. It makes me feel powerful and sexy. I dry my hair with a towel and look at myself in the bathroom mirror. Wiping away, I stare at myself in the mirror and suddenly think that if Nathan saw me now, he would be sorry. I completely forgot that Ethan was coming back. Nathan's son is back after a struggle, but to be honest, I'm not used to his presence. There's usually just Nathan and me at home, so I've even forgotten about his existence. Suddenly, the door opened, and I was jolted out of my thoughts. Ethan. I almost let out a cry. Ethan stood in the doorway, trying to avoid eye contact while dealing with the situation. Clara, I'm sorry, I saw the door open. I was just going to take a shower. His voice was shaky and embarrassed. Our eyes met, and the weight of that moment was crushing me. My hand instinctively reached for the towel, but it was too late. Ethan's face was beet red, and a strange current ran through my entire body. Ethan, haven't you heard of knocking? I try to keep my voice steady, but it's shaking. Yes, sorry, he says and quickly closes the door, but it's too late. These seconds have disrupted the rhythm of my life and turned everything upside down. It must have been an accident, but why is my heart beating so fast? Ethan seeing me like this triggers a strange excitement inside me. I'm embarrassed, but at the same time I kind of like it. I tried to calm myself down and close the door, but my mind kept repeating the moment I came out of the shower and the way Ethan looked at me. I had never felt so vulnerable and exposed. I felt very strange, both embarrassed and excited. I didn't even know what had happened. My confusion took over my mind. I walked towards the mirror and looked at myself. The red underwear clung to my body, exuding a mature radiance. Although I was already 38 years old, my body was still young and charming. The years have been kind to me, not just my body, but also my eyes and hair. Everything looks vibrant and fresh. Exercise has given me firm muscles, and my skin is soft and smooth, flawless. Seeing this, I feel full of strength. But on the other hand, looking at myself, I strangely think of Ethan's wary gaze. I want to know what he really thinks of me, what he's thinking, what he's scrutinizing about me. Something inside me tried to stop these thoughts, but as my eyes scanned my body, I was proud of my physical features. I looked stunning in my red lingerie. I suddenly remembered that Ethan had occasionally emerged from the shower, with just a towel around his waist. A strange light flashed in my eyes. Ethan had always been handsome, with a great body and an impressive physique. But as I started to look at him like that, I also started to feel other emotions towards him, to become curious about him, to feel something for him. In my mind, it had always been just pure attraction. But now these thoughts resonated strangely in my body, and without realizing it, I held my breath and followed him with my eyes again. But I heard the inner voice of guilt. Nathan, yes, he also appeared in my life. 47 years old, a successful businessman. He works so hard that he doesn't have time for me. Sometimes I wonder about my marriage to Nathan. Are we really happy? Or am I just used to being alone? I'm just used to Nathan. Recently Nathan seems to have lost interest in me. After a long business trip, I realized that he never seemed to care about me. We tried to fix it, but the warmth of the past is gone. Nathan is so focused on his work that he really just another ordinary night. Nathan came home from work and had dinner with us, as usual. But then he said something about going to a party tomorrow. At that moment, I felt that this was exactly what I needed to get my mind off the thoughts that had been occupying me for the past few days. Yes, a party, a good opportunity to spend time with Nathan. A few weeks ago, when I first heard about the party, I imagined spending an evening with Nathan, spending the night with him, attracting his attention, and creating a little surprise. But Ethan interjected. He said, "Go visit a friend. You two go to the party. When you get back, I'll be on the plane." Ethan always does this. He seems younger and more free than me, and doing things like this comes naturally to him. On the other hand, Nathan is focused on work and doesn't care much about these kinds of things. I got the chance to go to the party, but Nathan's eyes carried the sense of detachment I'd felt for weeks. I still wanted to show him that I cared, so I dressed up a little, wearing a red, slim-fitting, elegant dress, put on makeup and did my best to style my hair, just to impress Nathan. But things didn't go as planned. After the party was over, no matter how pretty I looked, I didn't spend the night with Nathan alone. He made excuses about having to attend a business meeting and hanging out with friends, leaving me at home alone. I was alone again, and something felt broken inside. I wasn't entirely sure what it was, but I felt so sad when I got home that night, knowing that I should have spent the night with him, but it had slipped through my fingers. I got drunk and went upstairs alone to take off my clothes, feeling my heart break. I had done so much to get ready for the night with Nathan, and here I was, just in my black lace underwear. I felt so frustrated that the red dress, the makeup, all my efforts had been for nothing. I felt empty, and I was a little angry, but I also thought I needed to do something to get through this heartbreaking night. I quickly decided to go to the kitchen, maybe have a drink, maybe smoke a cigarette. I needed to clear my head. I just wanted to relax and cheer myself up a little. I went to the fridge, poured some wine into a glass, and then took out a pack of cigarettes and lit one. The smoke made my throat feel incredibly tired. Tonight, everything seemed to have come to a standstill, blocking my view, when something unexpected happened. I heard footsteps, and my eyes immediately turned to the kitchen door. Ethan. Ethan was home. I didn't understand why he had come back, or why he was here. But at that moment, I was completely stunned. I had been imagining the tranquility of that night alone with Nathan, and now to find Ethan standing in front of me had a strange effect on me. Ethan was supposed to leave, but his friend's plans changed and his flight was cancelled. This was something I had never considered. Now we were standing face to face in the kitchen. I stood there at a loss for words. Seeing Ethan standing in front of me like this was completely unexpected. Standing there in black lace underwear was definitely not something I would normally do. But that's how he found me. I took a deep breath, trying to avoid looking at him and feeling embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Ethan," I said, my voice a little shaky. "I didn't know you were here. I didn't know it would be so embarrassing to see you here." I lowered my head, trying not to make eye contact. I had no idea how to express my confused emotions, but Ethan didn't seem at all surprised. He calmly walked closer to me, with a slight change in his eyes. He paused for a moment, then slowly asked, "Clara, why are you crying? Why are you so sad?" His voice was different from usual, sounding more sincere and emotional this time. His eyes seemed to look straight into my soul. He smiled as he approached, but not just a smile on his face, but a smile in his eyes as well. My thoughts whirled like a whirlwind, because at that moment I felt him influencing not only my body, but also my emotions. My feelings were complex, but deep down I also felt something completely different. Ethan's gaze was so sincere that I no longer feared its effect on me. Instead, I walked towards him. His words confused me even more, and I slowly opened up. I looked up and saw the sincere expression on his face. His gaze was so intense that I felt him not only physically close to me, but emotionally close as well. At that moment, I felt how vulnerable I was. I was frustrated that I would not be able to have the night I had imagined. Tears quickly slipped from my eyes. Ethan approached and whispered, "Clara, do you know how beautiful you are?" His words brought me some relief, but they also shocked me. Noting that Nathan has been unable to give you enough attention because of work, he continued, "You are really special and beautiful, and you deserve this night." His words brought me some relief, but my mood remained unsettled. I felt very complicated and intense inside, and even being so close to him could not make everything normal again. Ethan's eyes were so deep, and at that moment I felt like I was lost in them. My thoughts seemed to slowly freeze. I took a step towards him, and Ethan stood there stunned in surprise. When I took a step towards him, I saw the expression in his eyes change. I couldn't understand my own emotions, and then it all happened in an instant. My inner conflict mingled with the strong desire to kiss him. I just wanted to get close to him, and then let go. In a flash, I kissed Ethan. It all happened so fast, I wasn't even ready. My eyes closed, and time seemed to stop when my lips touched his. The warmth I felt, the rapid beating of my heart, and the tension in his body, made me forget everything for a moment. At that moment, I could feel Ethan waiting for me to kiss him back. The warmth on my lips clearly indicated how strong his reaction was. Slowly, his hand slipped to my waist, and the distance between us completely disappeared. The complex emotions inside me instantly turned into a strong desire. I heard his breathing and instinctively pressed myself against him even more. We quickly moved from the kitchen to the living room, and with each step, our lips clung ever closer. Our bodies collided with the walls, and in the intensity of the moment, we clung to each other, just as Ethan's hands caressed my body as we crashed into the wall, towards the living room door, and somehow found ourselves sitting on the living room sofa, breathless, side by side. Ethan had left his trousers in the kitchen, next to the sofa, and my black lace underwear lay on the floor. I realized how strange this moment was, but at the same time, I had completely lost myself. I opened my eyes and looked at him, taking a deep breath. Ethan noticed how quickly everything had progressed, and he read the expression on my face, smiling faintly. His eyes still showed how much he had affected me. He took a deep breath and looked at me and said, "Clara, what's happening? Why are we doing this?" I was a little surprised, but at the same time, I felt a little relieved. I followed his gaze. I didn't know what to say, but I had to say something. It all happened in the heat of the moment. I spoke, my eyes turning to his, but I didn't know. I just wanted to release the feelings inside. I thought I was getting through the night. Ethan nodded and ran his hand through my hair. "Is there really a problem with us being so close?" he asked. Ethan's hand rested on my waist, his fingers roaming over me, leaving me more impressed with every passing second. He looks me in the eyes, and I catch my breath. He takes a deep breath and slowly moves closer to me. He starts to speak, as if opening up his heart. "I've been betrayed, Clara. I'm going through a difficult time. But at this moment I feel completely different." I'm surprised by the sincerity in his voice, and it also makes me feel relieved. He takes another step closer, and I feel like I'm lost in his deep eyes. "I feel so close to you." "I was surprised by these feelings," he said, "but I can feel you, Clara. I can feel you close." All my emotions came together in an instant, but my heart was beating fast. Ethan's words made it clear how strange and complicated everything was. But the fact that I was able to feel his closeness, his proximity, the way he moved towards me, the way he heard the thoughts in my head, all of this affected me in a completely new way. When I found his eyes again, I said I was alone, Ethan, I was really alone. But now everything was so different. For the first time, I felt young, excited and lost. I felt something changing in my voice, trembling, really hard to express me. But the feelings Ethan brought me were so real. Just then, the door opened and a voice came. It was Clara. Nathan. He walked in the door, and the moment he saw the two of us, his eyes widened in shock. Everything seemed to have frozen, as if time had stopped. Ethan and I stared at each other, our eyes frozen, not knowing what to do. Nathan tried to figure out what was going on between us. Shocked and angry, his eyes wide, he held his breath for a second, frozen. Then the gates of hell truly opened. Nathan's voice broke the silence, angry and irritated, as he asked, "What the hell is going on?" His voice was full of anger and disbelief, as if the frustration and anger that had built up inside him for an unknown period of time had finally exploded. These words were like lead, piercing the tense air and seemingly shaking the foundations of the house. His voice seemed to shake the walls around him, and his anger pressed down on me like a tangible force. I felt like I was being crushed by a force of some kind. I could see the storm in his eyes, a sea of anger and disappointment so intertwined that it was almost impossible to look him in the face. His expression was distorted, and I had never seen it like this before. Every muscle in his body was tense with emotion. "What the hell happened?" he asks repeatedly, but obviously the question itself has lost its meaning. What really conveys the message is the emotional outburst, followed by a primal, bitter, painful Nathan. His eyes turn to Ethan, and for a moment, his anger seems to be focused entirely on him. He points at Ethan, trembling with anger. "Get out!" he shouts, his voice trembling with emotion. "You no longer belong in this family." These words are like a slap in the face, harsh and merciless. "My wife, your mother, you shouldn't involve her." His voice trembled, and each word seemed to tear at his heart. "What the hell are you doing? How can you all ignore me like this?" The pain in his voice was almost tangible, and I felt the weight of his disappointment crush me to the point where I could hardly breathe. I couldn't respond. The shock was too strong. My mind was struggling to process what had happened. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I couldn't bring myself to cry. I couldn't do anything. Nathan's words cut like a knife. I feel an unbearable weight pressing down on my chest as he vents his anger at me. His reproaches make me feel like it's all my fault, as if I've brought this mess to our home. What should I say? How should I respond to the anger being thrown at me? "Why, Clara, why did you do this?" S. voice felt like a punch in the stomach. It felt as if he was accusing me not only of betraying him, but also of betraying everything between us. "What have I done to you? How can one bear the pain of losing a husband and a son?" The words came at me like a tidal wave, and I felt the tears well up in my eyes. He didn't know how much I wanted to say something, anything, but I just couldn't. "You looked me in the eye and lied." He continued to whisper the words of his accusation, in a voice that felt like final judgment. I stood there paralyzed by guilt, shame, and grief. The pain in his voice was unbearable, but I had no strength to speak. My eyes filled with tears, but no matter how much I wanted to cry, I couldn't hold back the sadness. I felt as if everything had collapsed, and no matter how much I said, I couldn't make up for what was broken. Deep down, I knew that nothing would change, not now, not then. The damage had been done, and no amount of apologies or explanations could undo what had happened. Then Nathan's voice cut through the silence like thunder. Hurry up, get out!" he shouted angrily and frustrated. "You have no place in this house anymore." He almost pushed us out the door. His anger was so strong, as if he wanted to banish us from his life. Not just the house. These words echoed in my ears as I stumbled backwards. His anger was too strong for me to bear. Ethan and I exchanged glances, our eyes locked in that charged moment. No words were spoken, but the weight of what had just happened hung between us. We had so much to say, so many emotions to express, to not express, but they were there, heavy and suffocating. I saw the same confusion and chaos in his eyes as they churned in my own chest. We both knew how much had changed in that moment, and the aftershocks were already beyond our control. After what felt like an eternity of silence, Ethan spoke. Despite the storm raging inside him, his voice was steady and calm. He spoke the word with quiet resignation, as if he had accepted that there was no turning back. I nodded, a mechanical, stiff movement, as if I were just going through the motions and not really understanding what was happening. I replied, my voice barely audible, as if I couldn't muster the courage to speak louder. As we walked outside, the cold air slapped against my skin like a slap, but it couldn't dispel the fog in my heart. No matter how hard I tried, could not stop them. But the truth is, the guilt was too heavy to cry about. I could not get rid of this burden, and it seemed to get heavier with every second that passed. My head was spinning, my emotions and thoughts dizzying. I could not sort things out. I did not know what to do next or where to go. Everything had happened so quickly, like a series of events without warning. Now I stand in the middle of a mess, completely overwhelmed. It's as if I acted on impulse, without thinking about the consequences. Now I have to face the chaos I've created. I feel like I'm going to drown. Ethan being here next to me should be a comfort, but all I can think about is that I've hurt him. I realize that I've done something like this before. I whisper to myself, letting the words escape in a weak, broken breath. I covered my face with my hands and continued to cry, as if trying to escape the inescapable feeling of guilt. I couldn't escape the heavy burden of my actions, which made me feel suffocated. I didn't understand how things had come to this. What had I said to Nathan? How had I betrayed him? These questions echoed in my head, but I had no answers. I knew that I had hurt him and betrayed him, and that this hurt and betrayal could not be undone. It felt like I could not take back the words I had said, and the things I had done. With every step, I am further and further away from that house, unable to control everything. With every step I take, the weight of my regrets suffocates me, and it feels like every movement I make pulls me further and further away from everything I once knew. I don't know what to do next. There is no direction to follow, just a sense of utter disorientation. Yet deep down, I still cling to a faint glimmer of hope that these feelings of guilt and confusion will eventually fade with time. I tried to convince myself that it was just a matter of time for the wounds I had inflicted on myself to heal. But even as I clung to that thought, I couldn't shake the feeling that nothing would ever really be the same again. Ethan, who had been by my side, a comforting constant, slowly pulled away, and it seemed that his departure was the final step in a long journey. His leaving was not just the end, it also gave me a glimmer of hope, albeit one that was so small and fleeting. I wondered if his departure would give me the space I needed to find a way out of my predicament and somehow regain control of my life. But hope is like a spark easily extinguished. Nevertheless, in that moment, I clung to it and moved on, determined to do everything. It will be different for me. I watched him walk away, my voice trembling as I whispered the words. They were more the result of a need to release something inside than anything else, even though they made no sense. Without him, I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew that everything had changed irrevocably. So I took a deep breath, and a mixture of fear and determination welled up in my heart. I took a step forward, my body moving, but my spirit lost in the chaos of thoughts in my head. Despite the overwhelming darkness around me, loneliness suddenly felt like the only option. In that moment, loneliness seemed to bring clarity, even as I was consumed by my emotions. I knew that loneliness would eventually bring some kind of light, a healing way out. It was hard to believe, but for a moment I let myself feel it deeply, a faint and fragile whisper of hope. But it was there hovering, enough to give me strength. I took a deep breath, and in that moment, something changed within me. The tears that had been falling seemed to slow, and with them came a little bit of strength I didn't know I had. I didn't know how to get out of the mess I had created, or if I would ever fully recover from the damage, but I knew I had to try, that I had to find a way forward and reclaim myself from it all. I couldn't predict the future or how things would turn out, but I believed I would get through it and find myself again. I would find myself again, put the pieces of my shattered life back together and rebuild. No matter how impossible it seemed at the moment, everything would start again. I stand there, my thoughts racing, and can't help but feel a change in my heart. If you're reading this, I know you're as excited as I am for this journey. There's so much more to this story, so many twists and turns yet to come. I know you don't want to miss a moment. So if you're in, don't forget to click the follow button and turn on notifications, so you'll be the first to know when a new chapter is available. And please leave your comments and let me know what you think. I'm curious to know what you think of this journey, and your opinion is important to me. Let's continue the conversation in the comments below.